Hello, everyone. It's your favorite two hosts. I'm Dr. Prince, and I'm joined by my wonderful co host, Gio. And we want to welcome you to the Geo Trip. It's so great to be back, and we are grateful to you, all old and new listeners who have chosen to rock with us. Yes, pun intended. Joining us today is Dr. Samuel Nyarko. He is an assistant professor of geoscience, and Sammy uses mixed methods of research to explore theoretical and practical ideas for improving students' geoscience learning, interest, and workforce development. He studies how we can use geohistory and current developments to foster teaching and learning of geoscience, along with diversity, equity, and inclusion. He also studies students' collaborative skills development in the areas of teamwork and team learning to prepare students for the geoscience workforce. Sami is also active in climate change conceptions research among pre-service teachers and undergraduate students in Africa. Sami is also an associate editor for the Journal of Geoscience Education and past chair of the National Association of Geoscience Teachers Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Sami, welcome to the show. It is absolutely our pleasure to have you join us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, to get started, please share with us a little about your geohistory, how you got into the field, your career goals, and basically how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so my geohistory basically started from high school. So I had my high school in Ghana in a very kind of prominent mining town. And, as a young high schooler, I was really interested in, the mines. It's like everyone's dream that time to, just finish school and then get to work in the mines. But what really, really attracted me to the geosciences was, when we visited this mine one day, and then we were taking underground about they call it poles, but that's about 2 kilometers of depth underground, and I was really, really fascinated by what I saw underground, and then we had a tour, and I remember the tour guide kind of telling us about the consequences of the underground mine on the water bodies within the community, and some history of pollution as a result of the mine on the soil and then the water in the area. So that really got me interested, and so when I completed high school, I just went straight into geological engineering because I wanted to be an engineering geologist to work in the mine. Yeah, so that's how I actually got introduced into geology. I had my undergrad at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana from 2006 to 2010. And then after that, I realized that my interest was actually not in mining again because I learned a lot, the effect of mining on the environment and the fact that, mining can be a really dangerous, occupation, a lot of occupational hazards with regards to that. So I went into teaching. So in Ghana, when you complete your undergrad, you have a mandatory national service that you need to kind of do. So I went to teach high school science because geology is not offered at the high school level in Ghana. I taught chemistry and physics, mostly an integrated science. But prior to that, after high school, I had taught for a year at the junior high school level. So the experience was there and the joy was there. But, after 4 years or after 3 years of teaching high school science, I saw that, my interest was still in geology. So I went to get my master's in geology at the University of Ghana from 2014 to 2016. And then right after that, I met my PhD advisor, Heather Petkovic, who was really interested in my teaching experience and then my geology background. So kind of, got connected, and then I got admission to Western Michigan University to pursue a PhD in science education, but with much focus on geoscience education. So that has been my geohistory. It was rare that, I had this interest of actually working in the mines, and then I'm now working in a college classroom. So it's kind of a really huge deviation, but I'm happy that, I'm still in geology and helping people develop geological knowledge.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Sammy. What a story. I love how you brought us from Africa, specifically Ghana, into how you transitioned or came into the US, and the fact that your PhD wasn't necessarily this is going to happen, but once after you started teaching, you realized you wanted to do your advanced degrees and then got the opportunities. So, with that, can you use a plain language approach and explain the fundamentals of what you study and why it's important to our audience? We typically love to use the AGU plain language summary or plain language approach because we like to cater or communicate science, geoscience specifically, to everyone, not just those who are geoscience or earth science focused.
Yeah, so I'm currently focused on 3 areas of research in geoscience education. The first has to do with the nature of geoscience. So nature of geoscience basically describes how we develop knowledge in the geosciences and the work of geoscientists. So one thing, being here in the past 6 years or so in the United States, I realized, and, as a student myself, I realized that when you talk to students about, the geosciences, even at the university level, a lot of them do not understand what geosciences is. They do not actually understand the work of geoscientists. All these students come to our classrooms with very huge ambitions of saving our planet, right? Mitigating climate change and helping develop clean energy and other things, innovations around clean energy and clean water, clean air, and all those stuffs. But they basically do not understand the methods or the processes by which we develop knowledge around these concepts, and also the methods that we apply in doing our research, especially, with students taking our introductory courses. If you ask them, okay, tell me professions in geoscience, they'll basically, kind of tell you, geologist, rock scientist, right? But geosciences goes way beyond that. I just realized last week that even we have computational geoscientists who are becoming very prominent in our field. But a lot of students, none of them, I tell you, has so far mentioned computational geoscientists as a career in the geosciences. So basically my research is about exposing students to the nature of geoscience, what we do as geoscientists, and how we develop knowledge. So that tells you that, scientific knowledge, geoscience knowledge, just like science knowledge, is very tentative. So trying to help students understand, these geoscience concepts, and also to pique their interest in the field. Tell you what, if students understand the history of the field, they understand the philosophy of the field, it is very easy for them to develop interest in that field. So that is what I've been trying to do with my nature of geoscience research. We are in the process of submitting an NSF. I use proposal next week to, see if we can get more money to do this work and extend it to other universities. So that is the nature of geoscience project I've been working on. The second has to do with teamwork skills, teamwork process skills. So basically, if you ask every teacher in the geosciences or every field course instructor, they will tell you, oh, I use teamwork in my class or in my lab or in the field. But do we know if these teamwork practices are really effective? Let me tell you, from the literature, we know that explicitly teaching or telling students to learn through teamwork works, and implicitly doing that also works for students. They develop these teamwork skills, they're able to use this teamwork skills, but are they actually developing these teamwork skills, which are really essential for the geoscience workforce? So I've been doing this work. This was actually my PhD dissertation work, where I looked at what geoscientists classify as, important teamwork skills or essential teamwork skills that students should have, and then also worked on a field trip with students to see the type of teamwork skills that they develop. And then I am now kind of taking this research to the next level, where we're looking at teams, right? Field teams, and how they're using teamwork as a yardstick for developing a community of practice. So this summer, I'll be working with the SZNet field trip together with a colleague, mentee I'm working with here to look at how geoscientists from various disciplines. So we have volcanologists, we have sedimentologists, we have computational geoscientists, and different geoscientists coming together to do this field work. And we're going to look at the teamwork process skills that they're using and how that teamwork process skills is helping them develop a community of practice and a sense of belonging within the geosciences, especially during field work, which is a very huge rite of passage for both students and professionals. So basically, that is the teamwork process skills research. And then there is the third research, which is looking at climate change education in Africa. So I did this work during my PhD days, where I looked at the conceptions that pre-service teachers have about climate change and ozone depletion, because pre-service teachers are going to be future teachers and they are going to teach, students. And the danger with, not checking the conceptions that pre-service teachers hold is that if they hold any inaccurate knowledge, they're going to transfer it to these students, right? Especially in Africa, where learning is done in a very didactic way. Teachers just tell students, right, what they know, and then the students take it and they are examined on it, and then that is it. So trying to understand conceptions that teachers, especially in Africa, have about climate change, and then use that to develop, lessons to teach climate change to students in Africa. So those are the three research areas that I'm working on currently.
Wow, Sammy, super impressive. I don't even know where to begin to start to break down everything that you have your hands involved in. But I am going to segue us a little bit, or I shouldn't say segue. I'm actually going to pause us for a second and bring us back to the earlier part of your response. Because we have a geo trip, aside from plain language, we like to also really give focus to different topics just to help our listeners understand or feel a part, or be a part, I should say, of the conversation. So just to bring us back, you started with your work with the students and essentially talked about your interest in a knowledge share. So one of the questions that we have for you, if you could briefly describe for us the work that STEM, Education, Innovation, and Research Institute does and its aspirations for its futures. So I know you gave us a little bit of taste of developing these programs, how it's being done here in the U.S., and also the focus for research in Africa and the knowledge shares. But can you tell us a little bit about SEIRI and the aspirations for its future, please?
Yeah, so SEIRI, the STEM Education, Innovation, and Research Institute is where I actually did my postdoc. I left there last year, but I would say SEIRI is mostly like kind of a service or a support system for researchers interested in doing STEM education research. So if you come to Indiana University, especially in Indianapolis, one of the major roles for instructors and faculty here is not only do bench science research, but also do research around how they can improve their teaching and learning. So basically innovative ideas about teaching and learning. So what SEIRI does is that they bring in these faculty who do not have any training in conducting, science education research. So we bring in these faculty and then we help them, we kind of mentor them about doing science education research. So you might have a faculty who will come to see me, oh, I've been, trying these innovative ideas about my teaching in my class, and I want to know whether it is effective or ineffective and how it is actually impacting students. So that is when Siri kind of come in and then help you design, the research that you want to conduct, and then also provide you support with logistics and sometimes funding, right, and consultants to help you do that with the aim that, you'll be able to get the expertise after a year or two to submit for an external grant. The main work of Siri that I know.
So one of the things that you mentioned before that really struck me was you said that students don't really seem to have a full picture of what it means to be a geoscientist.
Mm-hmm.
Could you kind of delve into some of the reasons why you think that is? Is it because of what they're initially exposed to, where they first learn about the geosciences? Based on your observations, what do you think kind of limits their picture of what it means to be a geoscientist?
Yeah, so the main challenge, I think, for students, especially here in the US and I think all over the world, is that at the high school and the K to 12 level, in most states, geology, geoscience is or even earth science is not part of the curriculum. It's not a standalone curriculum. They kind of attach it to, let's say, environmental science, biology, physics, where they learn about these planets and they learn about rocks, minerals, and maybe the water cycle and those kind of stuff. But there is no standalone, course in earth sciences or geology for majority of students. And I think that is why most students come, to, our classrooms, or they come to geology or, geoscience classrooms with very limited knowledge about the geosciences. And it's not all over the US. I have a friend who has done some work in California, looking at, how students think about the geosciences. And the responses that they got from California is really, really positive. And the reason is that in California, I think students take earth science as a course, as a standalone course, I think from the middle school or so level. So they are well invested, right, in the earth sciences. And then the second thing is, we don't sell geoscience as a broad or a diverse science field to people as much. If you ask a lot of, high schoolers or even, early college students about geoscience, the first thing they will tell you is, oh, geoscientists do a lot of field work, right? They are always in the field. And this actually scares a lot of students from coming into the geoscience, especially minoritized students who are Black. Black students, due to, I don't want to call it perceived circumstances, but due to, the past circumstances of the tribulations they had to go through being on the field, it kind of scares them that, I'm getting into this field of science that is very field work involved, right? And as someone who is not really welcome to the field that much, because we've had experiences, or we've seen experiences of students or people, Black scientists, Black geoscientists working in the field and being harassed, right, just because of their skin color. So I think, how we sell geoscience also plays a very huge role in people not really knowing about our field.
What great observation, Sammy. We're definitely going to have to bring you back for another chat. So not only that we could talk about some of these observations and challenges in and differences amongst our students, but that we could also talk specifically to the references that are out there, because there is so much great work that's being done by geoscientists, geoeducation scholars, and other stakeholders that we would love to kind of lead or talk about some of this work and how it's not just opinion based, that it is actual factual and research. But I want to segue a little bit because Before we close off today, I want to touch on some of these differences and challenges we talked on, and you beautifully highlighted it in one of your previous answers when you were doing a little bit of a comparison. So you've mentioned how things differ by state in the U.S. Can
Mhm.
you share a little bit more insight or develop a little bit more on the differences that you've noted with African researchers and how they approach geoscience? So essentially, how are things comparatively in Africa where you're also conducting your research?
The major difference, I see with regards to geoscience in Africa and then geoscience in the United States is when in Africa, our learning and how we do things is very theoretical. It's kind of theoretically based. So students are exposed more to the theoretical aspect of the geosciences rather than the practical aspects. I tell you, and I'm not sure this is throughout Africa. But I know all the universities that pursue that have geoscience education programs have just 3 months of field work, or no 6 weeks of field work for students and some internship opportunities. But the sad thing is that there are not a lot of geoscience, companies in Africa, except, maybe in the mining and oil and gas. Apart from that, there is no a whole, lot of industries to kind of employ these students or bring them in as interns, or like in the US where geoscience is very practical. Students get to go to the lab and, actually do things, hands-on activities. They get to go to the field and then they get to do internships, right, in these, companies. There are a lot of companies. I think majority of students in my university are employed by environmental consulting and geoscience consulting firms, something that, we actually do not have in Africa. So we in Africa, the students, come out more as people with very good background knowledge in the theory, right, around the geoscience theory, but less of the practical and the application aspect. And this is something that we are gradually working on. So I've started this program with the University of Ghana where we're looking at developing conceptual change lessons around, climate change and some geoscience concepts, and also add them more of hands-on activities, practical, experiences for these students.
Wonderful. One thing I wanted to touch on, I see that this is like a thread that connects a lot of the different areas that you're focused on at the moment.
Mhm.
What has been some of the most fulfilling and also some of the most challenging aspects of operating in that diversity, equity, and inclusion space? We've seen a lot of initiatives that have kind of been rolled back in recent years,
Mhm.
but from your perspective, what have been some of the fulfilling but also some of the challenging aspects of operating in this space?
Yeah, I would start with, the fulfilling aspect. I think it's really fulfilling to see that a lot of people are interested in DAI in the geosciences. In the past few years, we've had a lot of work being done in these areas. And then we've seen NSF and other organizations, giving out a lot of money for this work to be done. Although I'm not sure about the success of these programs or, of this research that has been going on. But it's fulfilling to see that people are genuinely, interested in doing this. I'll give you some few examples. If you look at the second national conference that was held in Washington, D.C., that was a really huge turnout. And, from the discussions, you could see that people are really passionate about, diversifying our field. If you look at the EDGE program on learning racism in geoscience, that was a huge, successful program as well, where a lot of people, put in effort to do that. And I would talk about my own department where we've spent ton of our time, looking at DEI and how we can improve our departmental climate. We have what we call GeoFlip, where we meet every other week to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we can diversify our department. So it's really interesting. And yeah, if you look at the work that the women in geosciences are doing, Erica and her team, Blair with microaggression and ethics and all those stuff. I think there is some really strong commitment from people in that regard, which is fulfilling to kind of see. Now, in terms of challenges, there are a whole lot. One is, as I mentioned earlier on, these programs, right, that we've invested so much in, looks like there hasn't been a lot in terms of their success stories, right, coming out. I know, there's been a lot of success with the Second National Conference, the EDGE program, the Women in Geoscience program, but I want to see, concrete, reports coming out. This is how we should do things. This is how things should be done, right, in terms of policies and actually, holding the legs of people and telling them that this is important work. This work is based on research. This work is coming from the literature, right? So that we will have, good policies going on to diversify our field. If we're just going to, do conferences, we're just going to talk, sit down and talk about it, we might get a lot of ideas, but the main thing for us is to send those ideas out there, is to hold people responsible for making sure that those ideas are turned into policies to diversify, our field. And I think there is a lot of potential in doing that. And I know there are a lot of people doing that gradually. I know Raquel and Benjamin from the Second National Conference are doing some really good job in getting, the stories of Black scientists and what they really want out there. I know Vashon and his EDGE team are doing some really good job about, formulating policies to help with recruitment, both in academia and, in industry. And yeah, I know the Disabled Geoscience Group research that Anita Marshall is leading is also, coming up with some really, really good ideas. I helped them develop an instrument that is going to look at the experiences of geoscientists who are disabled. So I think that there are some successes coming on, but this really needs to be robust and well thought of. And then the other challenge, I think, has to do with the lies within, the DEI in geoscience community. It's like DEI has become, something that people basically are using it to reward themselves and not really kind of thinking about the effect of the work that, they're doing. Let me give you an example. In 2020, there were a lot of positions that, in academic positions, I must say, that, strongly encouraged minoritized groups to kind of apply, because these departments were thinking about, diversifying their departments. And I tell you what, I have a grad student I'm working with. We have looked at about 37 of those positions. And I tell you what, only 2 hired minoritized groups, people from minoritized groups. So that tells you there is deception. Now they will tell you, maybe we did not think that minoritized person is the most qualified. But I tell you what, they hire less qualified people and train them. If you really want to hire people, diversify your department and help support people, you hire them, you hire the raw product, you refine it, and then you support it to become successful, right? There is no one coming from a PhD program that is going to be as highly successful as an associate professor or a full professor or even a tenure track professor, right? So it's like these deceptions that goes on that really makes me sad and makes it a challenge, right, to actually do this DEI work. And I tell you what, we plan to publish this report and also talk more about these deceptions, because it's not really right. I have someone, a Black, PhD holder who reached out to me when I mentioned this somewhere that, Sammy, I applied to these 7 jobs that specifically encouraged people of color to apply. I got to an interview in 3 of them, final interview in 3 of them with 3 white people, and they all had 2 white people as part of the candidates, and the jobs went to the white people. And they didn't give any reason for not hiring me, but maybe because I've not published enough. And I told, as PhD students, we are not, it's not an expectation to publish, right? So if they want to hire you and they are looking at that, then the whole hiring system is a failure because you did not have that opportunity, right? That white person had that privilege that white person had during their PhD. So I think the challenges are 2, how we can turn all these DEI efforts into effective policies and how we can stop the deception within the DEI spaces.
Wow, Sammy, you have given us so much to unpack there. I despise being the bearer of bad news because I am going to have to take us to our volcanic vault in a minute. But what I do want to say, I love where this conversation is going in regards to the commercialization versus the genuine implementation and practices of DEI and other supportive work. You gave such an exhaustive list, and I'm honestly, that list was the tip of the iceberg over some great researchers and scientists who are doing work in that space. I definitely want to say special mention to Anita and everything that she's doing in terms of accessibility, up and coming scholars like myself. Of course, I'm going to plug myself. Keela, early tenure track professors like Daryl, seasoned colleagues like Stephen Voss, and professional organizations such as National Association of Black Geoscientists with their upcoming conference and conferences. Their new leadership has been, and old, of course, they've been doing wonderful things in the pipeline. Black in Geoscience, AGU especially, for an international organization, how they've actually been putting their money where their mouths are and the programs that they're creating. Special mention to GSA and the upcoming affinity spaces that they'll be having again for our 3rd year. So many great programs have been birthed. I would love to have you back on another episode. And when I say I mean we, of course, because I know Dr. Prince shares my sentiments. We'd love to have you back on another episode to talk about this. This is where we like to close off on a fun note. And so today we're going to go into the volcanic vault to test your geoscience knowledge. So we're just going to ask you a couple quick fire questions just for fun. And then we're going to wrap it up and let our audience know where to find you until we can pin you down for another episode so that we could continue talking about some of the amazing work that you're doing. So with that being said, first question I got to ask you. True or false? Ash from volcanoes can spark lightning.
That is interesting. I think that is false.
Actually true, and it was a fun fact that I learned while helping prepare a K-12 program.
Wow.
All right, second question for you. This one is closer to home. This lake in the Ashanti region formed by an ancient meteorite strike.
Yes, Lake Bosumtwi.
That is correct.
Yeah, that was actually the site for our field trip during undergrad.
Look at redemption. So controversial question. Who has the best jollof? Nigeria or Ghana?
You know what? Nigerian jollof doesn't come anywhere close to Gambia jollof. Talk of even Ghana jollof. Nigeria is nowhere close. Ghana jollof, spicy, well made, and very delicious than Nigerian jollof. Nigerian jollof doesn't come anywhere.
The jollof views expressed by Sammy are not those of the Geo Trip podcast. You will not have my Nigerian colleagues boycott me. We love all jollof here at the Geo Trip. Take it away, Kyron. Close us off.
Any Nigerian geoscientists on there want to come and defend Nigerian Joe. Come on down, all right? Okay. So, what an episode. That's all we have for you today, folks. But if you want to keep the conversation going, please get in touch with us. If you have questions about geoscience, or maybe why some natural disasters seem to be occurring more commonly, maybe you're just curious about how the physical world works, send us your questions and we'll do our very best to unearth the answers that you seek. You can tweet us at geotrippodcast, or you can email us at thegeotrippodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Nyarko, if people would like to get in touch with you, what's a good way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can email me snyarko@iu.edu, or you can go to my website, IU.edu Indianapolis, and then look for Samuel Nyarko from the Earth and Environmental Sciences Department. And you will have a link to my lab website there as well. And, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to, have conversations with people, especially around, the science education research and DEI in the geosciences, because I think there is more that we can do as a community, and we're already doing more as a community, but, we need to bring in more people. We need to get, the young students interested and excited about our field, and I believe, we're on the right track doing that.
Perfect. With that in mind, can you tell us any conferences that we can catch you at this upcoming fall conference season?
I will be at AGU in December. So if people want to, meet and then chat, I am happy to do that. And I'm also on Twitter, Dr. S. Nyarko, and I'm part of Black in Geoscience. So if you reach out to Lay or Lay or any other person in Black in Geoscience, I think they should be able to connect you to me.
Perfect. With that, audience, thank you so much for tuning in another week. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to my co-host. And we just want to remind you, don't forget, geoscience is everywhere around us. So next time you're outside, take a look at the rocks, the mountains, or even the ground beneath your feet. There's a whole story written in stone just waiting to be unraveled. See you on the next episode of the Geo Trip. Take care.